Alright, I was ganning to review this Justice League quarterly that I got, but one thing that supersedes my plans is my dreams. And last night, I dreamt about a sexy character who is introduced at the end of this story. This is Excellent Men Legends, issue 211. I was ganning to say that this cover is an unattractive mess, showing random Excellent Men bad guys. But then I realised all four of them actually feature in this. They are mentioned, if not actually shown. It's still not a very colourful image or a set of enticing or memorable visuals. They also could have included Sinestro, Juggernaut, and a few others that have a presence in the issue and could help make it pop a bit more. But they didn't. This series, this book, it has an interesting premise. They reworked this book as a Dr. X solo series. And that felt like both something new and something that was worth doing. The first few issues of it, the first 7 or 8, they are really good. And they do just about everything I want a Dr. X solo series to do. Then I think they saw that the sales weren't great, and so they largely abandoned this. They did a few Dr. X teaming up with Wolfman or Rouge plots, and then they scrap it and make it into another Excellent Men team book. One of the things that made this potentially great was it was keen to explore every facet of Dr. X, including trying to fix many of the dodgy retcons that had been forced upon him to make him morally deficient. Here is Juggernaut, Dr. X's stepbrother. He is woken up by an attempted psychic attack. His helmet, which he sleeps in amusingly, protects him from the brunt of it. This is important. Here is some setup for a part of Dr. X's continuity we never got a look at in this title. His sister from the Van Morrison run. And actually, this whole opening dream sequence is filled with characters they could put on the cover. But what I was ganning to say was elements of the main character that we sadly never got to see explored in this series. Stuff like his son, Dan Stevens. I guess 40 issues later, they did do Age of Egg. But they make a few references to his son early on in this run, and then never do anything with it. Just like with his sister, I guess. The story here, the overall direction, the premise is that Dr. X, he is trying to find himself. He has gone on a journey to re-examine his past and what makes him who he is. If you ask me, that is a great idea, because not only does it allow Dr. X a story arc, it also presents obvious openings to incorporate other Excellent Men characters or continuity. The continuity in general is strong in these initial issues. Like right now, Dr. X, he has gone to visit an odd friend of his, Carter Riken. He was a one-off bad guy who was featured in one of Fabio Nicieza's first stories on Excellent Men. He was a villain called Azad, whose backstory was that he was Dr. X's childhood friend. He is a very, very minor character, and a lesser writer or a lesser story would have no idea who Azad is. But there is so much Dr. X continuity and characters and things to take a look at with his history and his relationships. I think if they stuck to their guns and just did a Dr. X series, this would be remembered a lot more fondly than it is now. Nobody talks about these first few issues where it is actually a really promising quality series. People mostly remember the ones from after it is retooled into being an Excellent Men series again. So we get flashbacks. The flashbacks are drawn by a different artist each issue. I'm not crazy about that aspect. I would prefer just one artist throughout. But here we see Dr. X when he was young, and he is with Azad. And I am not sure if this is all new info. I feel like this was maybe established before. But here we see how both Dr. X and Azad, they were taken to a shifty doctor because they were both muties. And the doctor who treated them is Sinestro in disguise. And he is injecting them with loads of stuff. I think we maybe saw or were told that Dr. X's dad and Sinestro had worked together before. There is some quite subtle threat building going on that you didn't quite pick up on until you have read the story once. The Juggernaut thing at the start, for example, it would be very easy to not make the link with that scene and what Azad is talking about here. It is well done plotting. This stuff here, I think this was what we had been told before, that Dr. X's dad and a few others worked on a secret government project that also had an incognito Sinestro involved. So the idea that Dr. X was, by chance, treated by a doctor who was Sinestro doesn't seem like too much of a stretch. I think the more tenuous thing is that his dad was coincidentally involved in Summit with a bunch of other relevant characters. But I am sure that was all already established by this point. So adding to that is okay with me. Dr. X is also being watched by some people. People are tracking him. And there is a sniper on the roof of Debenhams. And here Dr. X uses his powers to control a bunch of pigeons to attack the sniper. You should do that more often, I reckon. Another thing we build up a lot is a common war within the Bondage Club. And this is a really, really intriguing plot line that doesn't get going before the book gives up. Eclipse from the New Muties, he is there and he is leading the Bondage Club. And I would have loved to see this story play out, but it just doesn't. Eclipse was added to that Young Excellent Men series, so he is dropped from here after this. And the Bondage Club Civil War thing is quickly disposed of as a plot line. One thing the series does succeed at with these bits is Kevin Bacon's character. Kevin Bacon is written the best he has ever been in these issues. I will come back to him in the next part. I really want to talk about I touched on some of it in a one-shot by this writer, the Endangered Species one-shot. It had a Mark Stanley Lee cover. And I think I also reviewed the issue just before this one, in like the first month of this channel existing. I probably say a lot of the stuff in those videos, but I do want to reiterate all of it about how Kevin Bacon is used in this. But right now, Azad, he dies of a sudden brain aneurysm. This is the type of character I am fine with killing off. He only had the 2 issues from the 90s to his name, and he was quickly forgotten about. Bringing him back here is a nice bit of continuity, but he is someone I think it is okay to kill off. So, Dr. X, he is realising that when he was younger, his doctor was Sinestro, who will have used him and Azad and others as test subjects. Here is another flashback. There was this time around about 2007 and 2008 where comics were clearly trying to ape Lost. They would use flashbacks the way Lost did. And it never worked in comics, in my opinion, because a comic is a lot shorter than 40 minutes of television. One of the problems you might have considered with a Dr. X solo series is that he was never intended to be a solo star. A story just starring him is fine, but an entire series just starring him is going to run into problems. So we introduce a supporting character at the end of this. It is Ed Gambit. This was, or would have been, his redemption story. He had done a heel-faced turn and gone evil for a while, but now he is joining this series as Dr. X's travelling companion / bodyguard. I still think that they should have kept the R2-D2 character around from the last issue. They set her up quite well as someone who had reason to join Dr. X on his quest. And I think her and Ed Gambit would make a decent supporting cast. This isn't the sexy thing at the end of the story that I dreamt about. I meant at the end of the story arc. I meant Sinestral's daughter. She is hot. She gets nowhere as a character, but she is incredibly hot. And in her very few appearances, she does succeed at moondragoning someone. So that is Excellent Men Legends 211. These 4 issues, starting with this one and ending with this one, I strongly recommend these. So much good stuff done. It shows that there is some mileage and some worth in doing a Dr. X series. Shane Marvel did not agree. I rate this issue 211, 7 thumbs up.